Welcome to Recently Logged, where none of us has seen a woman for years.
Which that's a line reference for those of you who haven't seen Alien.
For anyone who has not seen Alien³, please don't take this clip out of context.
I was with my girlfriend like 2 days ago, I promise.
Wow. Well, Micah, consider the fact that the only female guest we've had on this show is our sister.
And my girlfriend.
Oh, that's true. And your girlfriend.
Hey, any female listeners of the podcast, we'd be happy to have you on.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know, right?
No, not
you
because
don't
of
know.
That. Not because of
you
that.
You don't know
because we haven't been doing as many guest episodes recently.
I don't know if we want the female guests on.
No, if you want to be on the podcast, please tell us.
We're a men's podcast here, according to Robbie.
Being a men-specific podcast is the worst thing you can be, I think, in this year, the year of our Lord.
Podcasts are already pretty rough,
right?
And being a men's-only podcast.
Oh my gosh,
that is woof.
No, it's funny. People like my dad gets on to me all the time. He's like, "Why don't you share the podcast that you like put work into more often?" I'm like, "Because it's embarrassing."
it's a wee bit embarrassing to do a podcast.
Saying that you have a podcast is very embarrassing.
No, anytime I open with that, I'm like it's embarrassing enough for me personally to even be like, yeah, I do video essays on YouTube.
The YouTube channel, yeah.
Because
on a movie.
I was going to say, a lot of people don't know. Like a lot of people who I would have said that to don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, I want to watch your videos," and they turn them on like right there. And I'm like, I want to die. This is it's not something you can casually just like turn on and be like, I wonder what's going on here. And B, I just don't want to see you watching my video.
Yeah.
But then it's even worse to be like, yeah, we do a movie podcast too.
Gosh. I mean, at least it's like, we're not like organizing it like months in advance or something. And you know what? We're not even making money off of it anymore. It's sad times.
Dang. Is there nothing to remedy that?
If you want to help us make money, go subscribe to us on YouTube and go follow us on Spotify, because we have to hit a 100 follower Spotify threshold to start getting ads again.
Because Spotify bought out Anchor.
Well, Spotify bought out Anchor a long time ago, but now they're like, the new ad rules. You gotta get 100 followers.
So yeah, go follow us on Spotify.
Follow us on Spotify. And if you are a woman listening to this and you want to be on the podcast, I promise that I'm not against it.
I think he's against it.
Despite the impression
you might have gotten. Look at that. He's quoting Alien3. His head's shaved right now, Robbie. This is questionable implications towards you.
You didn't have to point out that my head was shaved. It's a sensory thing. It has nothing to do with Alien3, I promise.
All right. This is one of our weirdest drag-on intros. We're talking about Alien3, or Alien³, if you will, since its official 3 is the superscript 3.
It's the superscript 3.
So that's cube.
Alien to the third power.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's tell the people what they need to know about the movie.
Let's. All right, so we're talking about Alien³. It is a 1992 film, rated R. It is an hour and 54 minutes. It's a little, man, and the special edition's longer.
The special edition is like half an hour longer.
All right, the little IMDb description is: returning from LV-426, Ellen Ripley crash lands on the maximum security. That's a joke. It's not maximum security.
It is labeled maximum security.
Right. How do they say it? Fiorina 161?
Yeah, something like that.
Where she discovers that she's unwittingly brought along an unwelcomed visitor.
There you go.
That does happen.
Yeah, that does. I was about to say that it does happen in Alien³.
Its cast features Sigourney Weaver.
Yay.
As always.
She was a co-producer on this one.
Right. Charles S. Dutton.
Nice.
Charles Dance. We need another Charles.
We need a third Charles.
Paul McGann, Brian Glover, Ralph Brown, and a bunch of other British people.
There's a lot of British people.
British white guys with shaved heads that look shockingly similar in the movie. It is very hard to tell them apart. It is directed by David Fincher. Of, I don't know, Zodiac fame. What is he most well known for?
I mean,
Gone Girl.
He'd already done
Fight Club.
Like, the Game. Well, he did The Game after this, I suppose.
Oh, this was his first film.
Yeah, I was about to say he did like 7 in The Game right after this.
Written by Walter Hill, Larry Ferguson, David Giller. I don't know.
I'm unsure.
Story by Vincent Ward.
Nice.
Characters by Ronald Shroust. Shrousett.
I'm afraid I don't know.
O'Bannon.
Dan O'Bannon.
Which,
that's a cool
if
name.
you're thinking, wow, this is a lot of different credits of writing this movie, you're right.
Yeah.
It is.
A lot.
We'll get to that later.
A lot of writing.
It was nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and it did not win, which is good, because its visual effects did not age well.
It was pretty cool, Micah. The guy who originally designed the xenomorph, I forget his initials, but it's HC Geiger, HG Geiger, I don't remember. But he also did a revised xenomorph design for this movie.
Indeed.
Which is pretty cool.
Also, fun fact, David Fincher hates this movie.
I love that there's multiple interviews where he's just like, I absolutely despise this movie.
The cinematography was actually done by Alex Thompson, which is he's a very interesting cinematographer. We
covered a couple, one of his movies at least.
He did Labyrinth, Demolition Man, Legend, Excalibur, so he had a lot of very like pulpy movies.
Yes, you can tell. It comes from, Fincher being a music video director, and I mean, this guy doing very, you're right, kind of pulp, like genre stuff in his career. So the melding of those two things, it makes a lot of sense for the visual style of this movie.
Yeah, and I was able to say, and the music is composed by Elliot Goldenthal.
It was a good score, I think.
Which, it's a good score, but it's also interesting because at the very, like, he's done a lot of very pulpy scores. He did the Batman and Robin score and the Batman Forever score, Interview with a Vampire, Public Enemies, and Pet Sematary. Like,
that's pretty cool.
It's a very interesting like careers for them to work on an Alien movie.
Pretty neat, I say.
But I suppose that's the Fincher difference.
The Fincher difference. Oh gosh.
Derogatory, man. I don't know.
Derogatory, yeah.
Question mark.
But yeah, that's Alien³ in a nutshell. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the production stuff, I'm sure, during the next segment.
Yeah. So let's get into what we think of Alien³. All right, so Robbie.
Yes.
Robbie, co-host, co-founder, co-producer of the podcast.
Yes, Micah, co-host and co-creator and co-producer of the podcast.
What are your personal opinions, your personal deep down feelings on Alien³?
Alien³.
Oh, wait. Hold the phone.
Hold the phone?
I forgot to mention this. Hold that thought. I was going to mention that there's also a special edition, also known as the Assembly Cut.
Yes. Quite popular cut.
That is more considered original Fincher vision before the studio cut it up. Think Aliens with James Cameron.
Yeah.
We will probably, like Aliens, be mostly talking about Alien³ Assembly Cut.
The Assembly Cut, the special edition 2003 thing.
But I'm sure we'll specify on the differences between the two. But continue. Sorry, yes. I just thought I should mention that.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm discussing a movie, I like to discuss the best version of it that I've seen, and just as a policy. So yeah, most of the time I'll just be talking about the special edition thing that they did. So. Alien³, it's a good movie at the baseline. I don't think it's bad by any means, but it does have some very strange elements. You can kind of tell that it's sort of a hodgepodge of a lot of different ideas. Again, to anyone who knows the screenwriting history of this movie, there were a lot of different plot ideas thrown around. And to the more familiar with like the Alien³ fan base, there's a very popular like initially scrapped screenplay that's gotten adapted into like an audiobook and the comic series, that sort of thing. But this follows a different plot.
Bad. Yeah. I don't like the idea.
I don't know. It's a weird idea. I kind of want to listen to the audiobook now that I know that there's like a dramatized adaptation of it. But yeah, the plot is very strange. It's like, it works to a degree though, like to a surprising degree. But I don't know.
It was a hodgepodge of ideas from different screenwriters, essentially.
Yeah. But beyond that, I admire it for its visuals. I think it has a very nice sense of like iconography and just a good like spatial awareness to a lot of its cinematography. I like the lighting generally. I like the VFX generally. Some of the digital effects have not aged very well.
The practical VFX.
Which I was really bummed out, Micah, when I found out that the new alien design, like the new xenomorph design, is only used in like a couple shots.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, because like most of the time when it's the practical xenomorph, it looks pretty much the same. It's a little bulky or a little bigger.
Yeah.
But the one that
the little thin guy
Geiger designed is the little like skinny legged guy running around, which is way funnier. And I wish they kind of kept that in the movie more.
But on that point, it really confused me watching the movie because he looks drastically different.
So different. Oh my god.
All the time.
Yeah.
Like depending scene to scene, this guy will not look like the same alien. And it's only ever one alien. Like there's never any other face hugger.
Yeah.
Besides, again, there's no other alien besides the one in Ripley.
Yeah.
But like he will look so different. As far as I know, he only sheds his skin once.
Yeah.
And then you see him in the little under compartment and he looks weird and different. And then you see him look like that, like in the pipe scene. He looks like that. He looks like that a couple different times. But then anytime it's a real suit, he looks like this massive,
he looks bulky,
massive black, different colored thing, and it looks completely different. And then when you get to the VFX shots of him running, he looks like this skinny little thing.
Yeah.
And it just like every single time he's shown in a different context, he looks completely different.
Yeah, no, it's strange. But you know, like I do like the way the practical stuff looks like with the suit. The alien has a really imposing presence, even more so than Aliens, I think. Because Aliens is more of I
don't think the xenomorphs have a very imposing
like
presence.
A shoot 'em up action movie.
I would say that the practical alien in Alien³ looks better than the practical alien in Alien.
It's just not handled use it very well. Yeah. But the gore's pretty cool. I like it for that. I like the general, like I said, the idea of it more so than the execution. Some of the side cast is a lot of fun. Like the main doctor guy that they introduce in this is fun. The religious leader of the prison is fun.
Just looked his name. Yeah. Dylan. The religious leader of the prison is Dylan.
Yeah. He's a lot of fun. His performance is a lot of fun.
He's so much fun. I love him.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Sigourney Weaver's great in this too. She's always good.
I have to re-educate the brothers. Exactly.
I don't know. There's some like kind of weird plot elements that just kind of are off-putting to me. Like I don't think it's like depraved crime religion stuff works all that well all the time. Like it works well sometimes, but not all the time. And it just leaves me kind of lukewarm at the end of the movie. But I don't know. I think it's cool. I admire its ambition. And I think the general pacing actually works a lot better in the special edition cut.
Yeah.
Which is surprising because it's half an hour longer and it somehow feels a bit breezier.
But yeah, true. It really does.
But yeah, what do you think of Alien³? That wasn't very brief. That was
not very brief, but I interjected into that as well. Yeah. So, sorry for my voice, guys. I'm a little
sickly
in the studio.
Got something going around the studio.
But Alien³ is an odd movie.
It's an odd movie
because I really do like certain elements of it. I think the actual atmosphere of the space is really fun. I like this place that
I didn't even mention the space prison atmosphere. Yeah, it's cool.
And I like some of the idea. I like the side cast. Some of them I like. I like the idea of the plot.
Yeah.
But I think really it's just messy. I think it was kind of unsalvageably messy in the screenplay.
Yeah. For sure.
There are too many ideas being played around with that never were fully meant to be combined with other ideas. Again, if you read about the production, pretty much all of the religious stuff came from a completely different idea to have it, like, them crash land on like a monastery planet,
which sounds dope.
And it was all going to be like about religion and everything, which would be very, very cool in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not some action mall. Stupid.
You want the army of xenomorphs fighting in the mall planet?
That takes everything I dislike about Aliens and makes it Alien 3. So funny. I'm very happy that doesn't happen.
Like I said, I need to listen to the audiobook.
But yeah, like especially it's really fun for a lot of it, and like Robbie said, the pacing is a lot better in the special edition. But really, what makes me the most disappointed when watching it is that no matter what they did with it, the ending is just, it never comes together. The ending just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like that good of an ending, despite theoretically it being a good thematic ending for Ripley.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a nice thematic capper for Ripley, but it doesn't dedicate enough time to Ripley to really be like that impactful.
Well, just a lot of stuff kind of feels rushed and out of nowhere, and it just kind of ends. And it feels pretty anticlimactic, especially given the xenomorph in this one, their fight against him being kind of weird.
It is a little weird.
Like the way he gets beat and like all of the stuff that goes into it. Well, it's
because there's never really been like a crew this big facing down a xenomorph before. They have so many people.
Yeah. So and again, I like the idea of them not having any weapons. I really like that, especially coming off of like the highly militarized Aliens.
I was about to say, as like on a conceptual level, as a sequel to Aliens, this is a cool idea. But it just doesn't. It doesn't. Really work
and really, I don't have any like big like, oh, this was egregious or anything. And I gave it a 3.5. I feel pretty like it's pretty good. I gave the original cut 3. It's just as sloppy. It's messy, and that's especially compared to Alien and Aliens.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Makes it look terrible.
Makes it look so much.
But it's still fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I ended up bumping it to a 4 after seeing the 2003 special cut. Because Micah, I was actually looking it up. The assembly cut is like a Laserdisc specific one.
Yeah, but according to what I saw, I thought it was the same cuts.
No, the 2003 special edition has some newly recorded dialogue and a couple new shots. It's slightly different, but it's basically the same.
Yeah.
But that's why I keep specifying.
IMDb has led me astray.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I definitely think that the 2003 special cut is it's a weak 4, but a 4 nonetheless.
Yeah, I thought about giving it a 4, but I just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I try and keep, like, if I enjoyed this a bit more,
Well, you don't give half stars, so
I do not give half stars.
I wouldn't give it a 3.
No, exactly. I was about to say it's.
But I wouldn't give it a 4. It's like it's some kind of 3.5.
Yeah. But do you have a question you want to kick us off with?
Did you notice that on the Alien 3 poster, it's got the little queen baby with his tiny little arm?
I like the tiny little arms. I think it's very funny.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
It's a very funny movie, Micah.
That's a neat little thing.
I did notice. Thank you for your question.
See, it was a question.
That's true.
Do you have a question? Because I'm thinking of a question.
We already discussed the new xenomorph stuff, but I wanted to ask like what you thought of kind of the evolution of the xenomorph in this, like, because we discussed that the designs are different, but I really dig on a conceptual level, like the fact that it's not birthing out of a human this time.
So I do have some thoughts on that. I have some wild opinions.
Go ahead.
So first off, I think the special edition is cooler.
It is.
In terms of...
It's much cooler.
In the theatrical cut, it's a dog.
It's a little dog. And I feel sad for the dog.
The dog gets the xenomorph infected, and then, like, the dog xenomorph comes out.
Yeah. And
it makes more sense for the little skinny-legged xenomorph
little skinny leg
to be a dog xenomorph. But that's not the xenomorph we see for most of the movie. We see this big honking xenomorph.
Bulky.
So to see that xenomorph come out of the space ox, is very cool. On top of the fact that, like you said, like visually, I think the space ox is a lot more interesting of a thing for the xenomorph to come out of.
I was about to say, it's a lot more, I don't know, it's a lot more like awe-inspiring and cool. Like the birthing scene and with the ox is just way better.
Yeah.
A lot more evocative.
Exactly. So I think that's really like neat, but at the same time, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's not used in any really interesting way. He doesn't really act any different from a normal xenomorph.
Yeah, it's true.
He's maybe a little faster.
I was about to say, he seems to be like zooming around a lot more. He's got the zooms.
He's got the zoomies.
The zoomies. Alien cubed where the xenomorph gets the zoomies.
Yeah, but like that was kind of disappointing to me. It doesn't really change him behaviorally.
Yeah, that's true.
And it doesn't really change him much physically.
I mean, you get like the cool, I think it's really neat that you have him, like you got the extra mouth like bashing people's heads in this time, which is a neat idea.
Well, yeah, but
it's a lot more violent.
The other xenomorph could have done that.
It's true. I'm just saying it hasn't in the past.
Yeah, it's just...
I like the tail. You get a little more tail action.
I don't know.
In this one.
The xenomorph in this one is such a weird use in general.
Yeah.
Like it's such an odd thing because he's kind of just hanging out for most of the movie. Like literally 90% of the movie, he's just in the walls.
I'm in your walls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes him a very odd presence when I don't feel that intimidated by his presence for most of the movie. I'm not worried for...
Well, yeah.
Because most of the characters...
I mean, Ripley's our main character.
Ripley's our main character, and they won't kill her.
Yeah, I was about to say, she's not in any immediate danger.
And most of these guys, I don't care if they die.
Dang.
Really, the only guys I care about are Dylan and the doctor.
Yeah.
And the doctor dies really early on. So, like... It does this weird thing that I don't think they were intending to with making Ripley like not a target, but it makes the xenomorph again kind of like my complaint with Aliens, but different. Like Aliens added so many xenomorphs that it made the xenomorph feel less imposing.
I mean, yeah, I had to kind of nerf it a little bit for it not to immediately kill everyone.
Right. This one is just like, he just doesn't attack as much as he could.
Little sporadic. He felt a little silly.
And like, again, he can't go after Ripley. So like, he just, he only takes out a couple people here and there.
Yeah.
He's just hanging out.
He's just hanging
whenever he feels like it, Sure, he could come in and kill really all of them at any time.
Right.
But he's just hanging out. He's having fun. He's a space oxen xenomorph.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a little strange. I just thought it was neat. I still think it's a bit silly that they like commissioned a whole new xenomorph design and then only could use it in a couple shots because they couldn't get the rigging right for the VFX. I'm like, that's sad. Yeah. Because I don't know. The guy who designed the xenomorph is obviously a very smart artist.
Yeah, which is crazy to me too because they have some really impressive rigging work in Aliens. So you'd think
it looks amazing.
So you'd think they'd be able to pull it off.
Dude, the fact that the alien queen exists on film is insane.
It's crazy. Like again, yeah, the
full-scale alien queen puppet on set is crazy.
Like literally, that's some of the most impressive like alien puppetry ever.
That's insane. That's the Cameron difference.
I feel like that team could have, made a practical alien.
I feel like with how much of this film's budget probably got like just kind of fluttered away with all of its production troubles, sure. It feels a lot more low budget than Aliens.
It does.
And it feels about as low budget as the first Alien does.
Which is interesting because I wonder what their VFX budget was, honestly, because this was made in like the early 90s where visual effects weren't that cheap. Like digital effects weren't that cheap.
Yeah.
So, they still spent the money on digital effects. They don't look very good, even for 90s standards. Yeah. They just look bad.
I was about to say, because this is like post T2 kind of thing, this era of movies.
Like there had been some aged digital effects, but some decent looking digital effects. But honestly, if you watch the theatrical cut of this movie as a modern audience, it is a joke. It is literally a joke. You can see the green screen around him.
It works for me. It just doesn't. It doesn't have the same bite that it could if it looked better. You know?
Yeah, like it's kind of laughable seeing this little clearly fake alien.
Yeah. It's interesting. They had some like brand new VFX technology that let them like record some of the rotoscoped xenomorph stuff and immediately overlay it on the footage, and like this so they could adjust their performance with it. So they did like almost like 80 takes of a lot of the VFX stuff with the puppets and everything. And like it's a shame that it like wasn't traced on as well as it could have, or like color corrected as well as it could have been. But again, they did a lot of this work on like laser discs and stuff. So
Robbie, Titanic came out in the 90s.
Titanic is crazy, Micah. Again, we just keep mentioning James Cameron movies. It's an unfair
Jurassic
standard.
Park came out in the 90s. And think about the Jurassic Park's blend of practical and VFX.
Much bigger budget, Micah.
I know. I'm just saying.
It makes me sad.
This came from such a big franchise. Alien was a hit. Alien was a hit. Aliens was a hit.
Immaculate.
And then this movie was just left in production hell for so long.
Production so far.
It just bled out budget wise up until they finally put something out.
Sad times, man. But yeah, I just thought the xenomorph stuff was interesting. Again, I think this is like the most slasher xenomorph we get, because like you get like a lot more over the top blood stuff in this one.
Yeah, and
compared to the first one and even the second one.
Well, and because of the way the alien is, where he's kind of like always in the walls, not really doing much until he comes out and like does a slashy kill. You know,
it feels like a slasher.
It's a very much slasher type alien.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
Whereas the alien in the first one's just like, blah.
Like reaches out at you.
Yeah, he's like, ooh.
But yeah. No, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of another good quote. What do you think of like, this is kind of one that I've thought about a lot, and I haven't really come up with a personal thematic answer, which has kind of bothered me, because there's a very clear through line through the Alien trilogy of, again, as we've talked about every time, themes of like sexual assault.
A very big part
of
the
relationship between like the power dynamics between like especially like corporate men over women and stuff like that.
And motherhood too.
And motherhood.
Big theme in Aliens.
So what do you think of this one going to like the rapist murderer prison with no women?
I really
as a thematic continuation.
I was about to say, I really like the idea of Ripley like having the alien queen inside of her in this movie, like knowing she's gonna die, because like it's the only way you could possibly ramp up the stakes from the first two movies. Is being like, okay, like, oh, the xenomorph is like in the first one, he's like, oh, he's like the manifestation of capitalism's brutality towards other people, and like he's killing all of your friends one by one, that kind of thing. And then the second movie is like, oh, he's gonna take like your children away, that kind of thing.
They're coming for your children.
Exactly.
Remy.
Yeah. And this one is like the ultimate, like, oh, like they literally they couldn't devalue her any more than doing that in this movie, you know?
I was about to say, throughout it, like her different essentially assaults from the alien keep like dehumanizing her more and more. And the company treats her less and less like a person.
Like I said, conceptually I really like it. It just they don't give Ripley enough time in this movie. It's much more of an ensemble piece than the first. Well, see, the first one's an ensemble piece too, but this one just has too many people.
Yeah, I was going to say, the first one's ship cast is only like 10 people.
It's true, yeah.
And like the first guy dies pretty fast.
No, I was thinking, I just thought about it. I'm like, wait, the first two are both ensemble movies too. Aliens is very much.
I was about to say, you have a lot bigger ensemble than Aliens, but it's kind of a war action movie. Yeah. So there's a lot more people die, and it's a lot more necessary to have a bunch of blank slate soldiers.
And even then, like, the soldiers are given a lot of characterization, and I don't know, I end up caring about them a lot more than any of the side cast in this movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, because they do an interesting thing, because they continue, because this is what I was getting at. They continue that theme, and on paper it makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Like, again, the theme of sexual assault leading to Ripley now having a baby that she doesn't want inside of her. Mm-hmm. That's a very clear through line.
Right, I was about to say, it's a very logical next step for the franchise.
But the weird thing about this is that by putting Ripley on this prison with a bunch of, like, predators.
Yeah.
And even, like, there's even, like, a sexual assault scene.
Yes.
You have all of this going on, but at the same time, you have this kind of Ripley is too hardened to care about the fact that she's on a planet with all of these people. And, like, she ends up getting in, like, pretty close with them, and it seems like there's a pretty good, like, redemption thing for all of them.
Well, yeah,
and then she dies for them.
Especially the longer cut, you get a lot more of, like, the redemption stuff for a lot of the prisoners, at least like 2 or 3 prisoners.
But I feel like it's not bad thematically. I just think it's an odd thematic relationship to go along with Ripley has the alien queen inside of her.
Yeah, because I like how basically in this movie, like, the company doesn't care. I mean, they've never cared about anything but the xenomorph in the other movies, but this time it's like like the worst it could possibly be. Like, this is the bleakest one, I think.
No, it's very much
because they don't even have to act like they care in this one, you know. But yeah, no, I do think it's interesting. Again, I think it works better on paper than it does in the movie itself, just because they don't have enough time to deal with this many people, this many characters.
Well, yeah, and it's just, again, I feel like those two themes, like, they don't mesh that well. Go together.
Yeah, in my brain, they don't mesh that well.
Like, her biggest personal threat is something...
It kind of gets sidelined.
Thematically done through, again, this thematic themes of sexual assault.
Yeah.
Again, a very, very clear theme throughout the Alien. You can't look at Alien thematically without pulling that from it. But then the entire thing is, like, I don't know.
It's just, well, see, the thing is, it approaches... It's like that plot point as just a way to get Ripley to, like, help them kill the xenomorph, you know, in this. Like, she obviously wants to kill it, but she was ready to just, like, die, you know, before that. I don't know, just the way the plot works out in the last act of this movie it's just
messy.
It doesn't feel as satisfying as it could.
No, not in the slightest. I don't even think the alien fight feels that satisfying, because they go through this big elaborate plan and they do all this, and then, oh no, it didn't work. But then, like, 2 seconds later, they just dump some water on him and he blows up. And I'm like,
I love that.
What was the point of it not working?
That's my favorite VFX shot, because that's one of the, like, that was like their big money CGI shot, is having the alien, like, crackle like that, and it looks really cool.
But
shout out to that.
And then, like, dude, I was very sad about this. This is one change that I will forever be sad about for the special edition, which I think is a better movie.
Yeah.
But Ripley, like, you know, she sacrifices. Yeah, she essentially sacrifices herself for everyone, but also specifically to try and save more of these prisoners' lives, I think. And she jumps off into the furnace.
The molten lead.
And in the theatrical cut, the alien queen, sensing that it's about to fall into molten lead, it bursts out of her chest, and she, like, holds it.
She cradles it as she
falls.
It's like the lava. Craziest shot in this whole movie.
It's such a sick shot. I love that. And that's not in the special edition.
No, dude, that was literally, like, my favorite beat in the whole movie is, like, her falling into the vat, and then they cut, like, the best shot in that sequence.
In fact, the entire, like she looks like, I don't know what they did, because clearly she's not actually falling into a vat of molten lead in the theatrical cut, but for some reason it looks so much better than whatever they did to it in the second, in the special edition. Like,
in the special edition, it looks like they redid it. Yeah. Like, they redid the effect just entirely.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look good.
I wonder if they did that just because they wanted to cut out that.
Probably. What it probably was is they wanted to make the timing work for like her falling in. And since they didn't want to change the score, they probably just wanted to extend that shot and couldn't do it with what they already had.
That's crazy. It's a real shame though.
Yeah, because that honestly was like the most I felt during the whole movie was during the little chest burster cradle shot.
It's such a cool moment for Ripley as a character.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems, like you mentioned. She's just sidelined so much.
She does get sidelined
because she doesn't have anything to do for most of the movie.
I mean, she's basically just like, we got to kill the xenomorph. They're like, we don't believe you. And then like they die, and then she's like, we got to kill the xenomorph, and they're like, okay.
Well, even then they're like, why should you lead us? And then 2 seconds later they're like, okay, we'll go with your plan.
Exactly, yeah.
And then the plan works, and then they're like, okay.
Yeah, it's just a very uninteresting way to use a very interesting character.
Yeah, especially at this point in her journey, because I feel like this is honestly some of the most interesting Ripley has ever been. Yeah. She's got a very personal threat going on with the alien queen. Again, a very interesting thematic threat for the through line of the series.
Yeah.
So you have a very interesting personal threat with the alien queen, but she also,
I mean, the stakes have never been
has
higher,
been
really.
through so much with this alien, and she's now like 80 something years old because of cryo sleep stuff.
Cryo sleep. She looks good for 80, I'll say.
Almost 90. And she's just like, she has the line like, you've been in my life so long I don't remember anything else.
Yeah.
And that's such an interesting line. Like,
right?
I really want to dig into her character this movie, and they just,
I was about to say, the despair coming out of Aliens, the despair that she should have in this movie, which we see a bit of.
Again, like she just goes, before she even knows that it won't kill her, she's just like, I'm going to look for it.
Yeah.
Like, she's just done. She's so done for this movie.
Which, again, I like it in theory, but they don't give her enough in this movie.
Exactly.
It makes
like
me sad.
They strip her of everything.
Yeah.
And they do something to her that personally destroys her.
And we just don't really get to see the effect of it.
And this is at an all-time low for how the company's treating her.
Right.
And for how the people around her treat her. Like, the people around her all view her, besides like 2 people, as a sexual object of temptation.
Exactly, yeah.
And like, so she's in this position where she's just in the worst condition ever in the series.
Yeah.
And we don't explore that much.
I was about to say, we don't really get to sit with Ripley that much in this movie, which is a shame, because in the opening of this movie, which is some of my favorite stuff, by the way, is like, all of the best moments are when Ripley does get to just kind of sit there for a second.
Yeah, and I think that was the real benefit of having the Doctor character there. He was somebody who could emotionally connect.
He's a great
Ripley.
Emotional anchor for this, which is why I think the second half of the movie doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah, I don't understand why they specifically killed him. In that scene.
I don't know.
Just to be mean to Ripley?
Yeah, it really doesn't make that much sense. I don't know. Like, I would have kept him around for the finale.
He's like the second person to die.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, no, just, again, it's a very messy movie. There's a lot of really good ideas here, though.
I was going to ask, though, what is your favorite scene or sequence?
I mean, I feel like I'd be a fool not to say, like, Ripley's sacrifice at the end, but, like...
Not in the special
edition.
Yeah,
it depends on the version, and I don't know. I really like the opening sequence of the special cut, because you get like the crash landing
stuff.
You get the space oxen hauling stuff away.
I was about to say, they completely change how Ripley, like how they find Ripley.
Yeah, you get the more personal, like the Doctor finding Ripley on the beach and like carrying her inside. It's a really cool sequence, and it feels a lot more meaningful than the opening of the theatrical cut.
Yeah,
and I just really like it.
It makes the personal connection between the Doctor and Ripley make a lot more sense.
And the atmosphere, I mean, I can't overstate this enough. The atmosphere works so much better in the 2003 cut.
They all have these goofy, massive coats.
I like the coats. But yeah, no, I would either go with, which is funny because either the opening scene or the closing scene.
See, I really...
But there is a lot of good stuff.
I want to pick something. I'm trying to think of a good scene, because I want to pick a good scene with Dylan and Ripley, because I really like their dynamic throughout the movie.
I mean, the morning after scene is pretty good, I will say, but it's just not very long.
No, Dylan.
Oh, Dylan. Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot, man. Yeah, they don't. Again, just not
they
very.
They have a lot of
very
different
long
scenes here and there.
Yeah.
But just like I would
you get
say,
a lot of nice small exchanges.
Yeah, I would say
them.
most of their interactions actually in the second half of the movie I really, really love, but they're never really a full scene. Usually it's overshadowed or stepped over by something. But I just wanted to mention because I really like their
dynamic is really good. Yeah.
Even in like the scene where Ripley asks him to kill her, I really love. It's
a good scene. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I guess I would cite that as one of my favorite
Interesting.
scenes.
Okay. Fair enough.
Obviously, I think the opening is one of the best. You get some of the coolest shots, some of the best atmosphere.
You get the space chickens.
You get the space chickens and the space oxen,
Ooh,
which are both cut from the theatrical.
Sacrifice scene is very cool. Like when they're burning the two bodies from the initial crash, and you get like the cross dissolves, and you get the birth.
Yeah, you really like that scene.
That sequence is really good.
That sequence is cool because you get the birth of the xenomorph. Robbie really loves this like insanely goofy cross dissolve.
Crazy cross dissolve.
3 people's faces while another face is like going in the background.
The 3 superimposed faces with all of the prisoners like panning behind them, like like opaque behind them. It looks so cool. It's like the coolest shot in this movie.
But I really like the speeches there, and the way it plays with the xenomorph's birth is very cool.
Yeah, especially again, special edition birth is like way better.
Though I did notice something, and I think this was just a mistake. I think this was a mistake of the people who did the special edition, because it was originally the dog, and the guy and the air vent. Yeah, he leans down in. And he calls his dog, which is not seen in the special edition.
Yeah, the dog never appears. I mean, you can just write it off as like, oh, he's crazy, or like, oh, he is just like calling out.
No, it's a mistake. I think it was a mistake that they left that in.
I mean, I would leave it in.
I wouldn't leave it in. It makes no sense.
I mean, it doesn't make.
It's a bad line. But
like, what are you gonna? You're gonna dub him saying like hello?
Just like don't have him say anything. They don't show his mouth.
That's true.
They could have just not had him say anything.
That's true. No, that's a fair point.
I just thought
very small nitpicky thing.
No, it's very nitpicky. I just think it's funny.
No, it is funny. Yeah, that's honestly the one of the biggest like discrepancies I found in the 2003 cut. But yeah, no, it's interesting. An interesting movie, Micah.
A very interesting movie. Do you have any other questions?
We mentioned the setting of this one, which again is a lot more sprawling than any of the other movies, really. I mean, Aliens has a fairly large like I don't remember what it is. It's like a refinery or a power plant or something. But we really only see like a couple portions of it. In this one, you get like the whole prison essentially.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask what you thought of the setting and like the atmosphere of it and everything.
Well, like I said,
the general aesthetics.
That's one of my favorite things about this. I actually really like being in this like setting, especially. And man, I wish this was more horror-y.
Oh, that's
man. That's my
if
thing.
They made this scarier.
That's my thing. That's the biggest thing I will still be upset for Aliens at doing, is that it makes it so much less of a horror franchise. Yeah. It was a horror movie. Alien was a horror movie.
Horror sci-fi movie. Aliens is an action horror. Sci-fi. It's an action sci-fi thriller more than a horror movie.
No, it's not a horror movie. And then this one is just kind of middling.
I don't know. It's a thriller. And I mean, it's a Fincher movie. Of course, it's a thriller.
But it really does make me sad because using this setting is so cool. Like even take like the pipe scene with Ripley. You can do so much fun stuff with the fact that like almost everything in the setting blends in to the xenomorph. It's all like wet pipes and dark areas. And yet again, there's only like one xenomorph and he only occasionally pops in and is like, blah, and then goes.
Yeah.
And it's usually supposed to be like shocking that he pops out, not like his normal like xenomorph creeping in the background and you can't see him.
I was about to say, you only get a few like creeping xenomorph shots and they're awesome. And Aliens and Alien, the first one,
both have a lot of
creeping xenomorph shots and they're like the coolest thing.
I was about to say, because that's the coolest thing about him is that he blends in so well with like the technology.
Yeah. Again, amazing design for the xenomorph.
Indeed.
It's like the best design ever for a movie.
So because of that, I feel like the setting is used and like in a way that feels more like a video game than anything else.
Yeah.
Especially towards the finale and everything. It just feels like it feels too video game-y in the way that like, oh, Ripley can't really die. And you've got to do all of these monotonous like,
it's very 90s music video.
Run through this section and then close the door before you get caught kind of thing. Like, and the entire finale and the entire use of the space in the finale is just kind of not my favorite.
Whatever,
whereas the atmosphere for, again, most of the first half is really tangible in the space.
Yeah. Again, I think the first half is so much better because we get more of Ripley's emotional point of view, and we get more of the interesting side characters, which the prisoners, again, in the 2003 cut are a lot more interesting than they are in the theatrical, but they're still just not like the reason I'm watching the movie, you know?
Yeah. No, I think honestly in the theatrical, the prisoners are kind of laughably bad.
Oh, they're laughably just like nothing characters.
It's just like, oi.
Because in the 2003 cut, you get at least like a handful of prisoners where I'm like, yeah, like
you get full character, like
you get
plots
a little arc for some of them, yeah.
Like you have the one guy who in the theatrical cut, his character doesn't even make a whole lot of sense.
Dude, are you talking about the guy who has the psychotic break after the xenomorph gets him?
And he has like. And this was very confusing in the theatrical
It's
cut.
almost incoherent.
This was almost incoherent because, like, again, and I think this was one of like the studio cut changes, obviously, from the way it feels, not like something they added later in the special edition.
Yeah.
Because like they're like, oh look, we have this room that nobody can get out of. We could trap him in here, and then that just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
in a very confusing series.
It's very strange because everything seems to be like leading to that, and then like it just doesn't happen.
And then in the special edition, you have this whole character of the guy. Like he's there kind of in the theatrical, but then you have them go through the whole process of trapping him. The xenomorph
seems like
works.
they've won,
They've got him trapped. They're like, yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you have this guy who has this whole thing where he goes a little crazy and he starts killing. He actively, like, I think kills 2 of the prisoners.
Yeah.
Which goofily just never appear again in the theatrical cut. Like this doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, they just
are gone.
No explanation. They're just not there anymore. We have to assume they died off screen.
And then he lets out the xenomorph, and that's and it very much is like a completely different framing for how, like, for going into the final stuff. It makes more sense. It again adds to the fact that these prisoners actually feel like characters.
I was about to say, I actually like care about what the prisoners are doing in the 2003 cut. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. I don't know. Again, I think we'll keep pointing back to just how messy it is, because that's really the only thing wrong with it. It's technically a pretty good movie by my standard, like just in general craft and like performance. I don't know. I think Fincher's style, even with how late in the game, obviously he came onto this.
Yeah.
I think it meshes pretty well with what the movie's trying to do. I just think it's trying to do too much for what it is.
Yeah,
because
it was just a hodgepodge of ideas, and again, you can clearly grab a bunch of different ideas that are present in this from the earlier screenplay ideas and the different treatments that were passed around.
And that's really, I honestly think if they had just gone with one thing and gotten, I mean, even Fincher at this stage, he's a good director at the very least. He has an idea, he has a vision for it.
Yeah. It was his first movie.
Yeah, as a debut, honestly, it could be a lot worse.
I think it's a shame to me that he hates this movie just that much. Like, I understand it. Like I mean,
if I made Alien³, I would kind of be pissed off.
Yeah, again, just studio stuff that gets broken with it, writing stuff that's all messy. Like, it's not what he wanted.
Because he was at a pretty prestigious point in his like career as like just a filmmaker. You know, obviously he hadn't made a feature yet, but he had been doing real well, making like music videos and like other cinematic stuff.
Well, the studios just didn't trust any of these directors, which again is so interesting to me, because you come from Alien, which feels like such a small budget, very director-led movie.
Yes,
like that is a Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah.
And then immediately after you have Aliens, which they just didn't trust James Cameron, and they chopped up his film. And it's not very, I still don't think the theatrical cut is that good.
No, watching the full actual what do they call it? I think it's assembly cut or something.
No, I think it's a special edition also.
Yeah, it's just, it highlights all of the wonderful tidbits that are just chopped out, and they really neuter Ripley's whole,
I was about to say, you can even
plot line in that movie.
You can even hear Sigourney Weaver talking about it in the production of this movie. She was upset because they cut most of they cut Ripley's backstory and her emotional core in the theatrical cut of Cameron's, which makes no sense. It really the entire rest of the series, so after Alien, is a tragedy of studios not trusting these up and coming directors
who have, again, they hired some of the best directors in recent history.
I was about to say James Cameron and David Fincher. Those are they weren't that big of names back when these came out, to be fair.
Yeah.
But they were two good filmmakers.
Two very, very prominent filmmakers in recent filmmaking history.
Who clearly had good ideas, but it just was not happening for them. Yeah. And the studios just...
Makes me sad, man.
Chopped these things up. They didn't let things happen. So much production problem. And I think that's what made Alien³ be so weak, because as much as I like David Fincher, he's no James Cameron.
He's no James Cameron.
And James Cameron seems to be able to pull out a miracle through anything.
I don't know what that man is doing in his spare time.
But it's unfortunately the weakest one, because I think it has a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, good ideas. Just, it's messy.
Yeah.
That's really its biggest crime.
There's no real recovering it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty good if you watch the special edition.
I will stand by that. Even the theatrical cut isn't bad. I wouldn't say it's good necessarily, but it's not bad. I haven't seen a bad Alien movie yet. Fingers crossed that Resurrection doesn't change that. But yeah, is there anything else you wanna talk about before we move on to our last segment, Micah?
No, I think I've covered all my thoughts really on the movie.
I was about to say, I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's cool for the reasons it's cool, and it is sad for the reasons it's sad. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into our next segment.
Let's. All right, so for those of you who have never made it this far, or are new to the podcast, or whatever arbitrary reason you have for never making it to this section...
You don't have to justify yourself to us.
This is the What We Watched segment, where we briefly, hopefully, go over everything we've watched since our last episode.
There you go.
Give brief opinions, ratings, and, just have fun.
Wow, we just like to have a good time.
This time, since we we skipped a week...
Took a week off.
We took a week off. We're going from the 18th.
The 18th of April.
So we're going the 18th to May...
Current day.
1st.
Yeah.
May 2nd, I guess, now.
Yes.
So it's a big chunk, a hearty chunk.
Yes.
So let's get into it.
What did you watch, Micah?
On the 18th, and deep into the night of the 17th, technically, I watched Yorgos Lanthimos's The Favourite.
Nice. The Lobster Man.
The Lobster Man. And this thing is crazy good. I don't know. I know a lot of people absolutely love this movie, but I absolutely loved this movie. I think it's impeccably well written. I think the performances are insanely good. That's really the highlight of the movie. People will always point to the cinematography because the cinematography is really impressive and unique. But honestly, I think the highlight of the movie is the performances and the dynamic between the three main girls. It's crazy, crazy cool. The thematic stuff they're doing is really, really fun, and it never overstays its welcome. I would say it's maybe slightly too long, but even then, it never overstays its welcome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it, dude. I'm a big Emma Stone fan.
Emma Stone's best performance easily.
Yeah. And I'm a big wide angle lens guy too. So
a lot of people compared it to a PTA movie too, and I would also compare it to a PTA
director.
movie. But I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Very nice.
Then on the 18th, I headed out to a little movie theater.
Lucky dog.
Headed to We had to drive like 30 minutes, like 45 minutes, honestly, I think, at the end, to go find this in Japanese. But I went and saw Suzumi, Japanese, in theaters, and that was fun. Me and Haley went to go see it.
Nice.
And she really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, coming from, if I can remember how to pronounce his name,
the director
Shinkai,
of
if I can, forgive me if I mispronounce it. I always struggle with his name. But the director, he directed Your Name, Weathering with You. So obviously with his movies, the animation is gorgeous. But I think this is honestly one of my favorites. I haven't seen Your Name, so that's like his biggest one.
Right, I was about to say that's like the one everyone
loves.
But
from what I've seen of his work, this is probably easily my favorite.
Nice.
On the basic fact that it's goofy. It's a goofy movie.
A little sillier than Weathering with You.
And Weathering with You takes itself way too seriously. Yeah. And I feel like that's a big problem with him, is he takes himself way too seriously a lot of times.
Which, I mean, I can appreciate, but like it's not that deep.
Well, he's a very self-indulgent writer and director. But having him have a little bit of goof, a lot of comedic relief.
A little bit of goof.
The theater was like consistently laughing throughout
fun.
This.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie. And I think that works well, especially with its emotional core being a little bit underdeveloped, despite being good. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I give it a 4 out of 5.
Very nice. On the 19th, I watched a little film called I Love You, Man, which, for anyone who has seen a 2000s comedy, it's one of the better 2000s comedies I've seen. I'm a big fan of Jason Segel. He's great in this. And I mean, honestly, if I'm going Paul Rudd roles, I'd probably go with this too. They're a really fun like duo to lead the movie. But it's fun. It's good. It's surprisingly like, I don't remember how I described it. It's a very down-to-earth movie, like more so than a lot of 2000s comedies that I've watched. It really functions more as like a slice of life kind of movie than like an outright zany comedy.
Yeah.
But it works really well, and it's surprisingly emotional. It's good. I Love You, Man. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Good stuff.
On the 19th, I went out. I didn't went out. I went in.
Stayed in.
To my bedroom. And watched American Gangster, a Ridley Scott picture.
Ridley Scott, the man.
And I was really excited for this because I'm a big Ridley Scott guy, and I like Denzel Washington a lot, and I like gangster movies quite a bit.
Wow.
So I was excited about this, but then it was sad because it falls into it falls into very much, I think my biggest complaint for this is it falls very much into the pit trap.
The pitfall.
The pitfall. If I could speak, I'm sick, so give me a break.
It's true.
The pitfall of being a biopic. And pretty much all of the things I dislike about this movie come from the fact that it's a biopic. I think because it's a biopic, the story isn't as interesting as it could be. I think the actual based on true story elements aren't handled that well. I think Russell Crowe is kind of an annoying guy to have as a protagonist. Like just his character in this is not like you want to root for Frank Denzel Washington. Clearly so much more than stupid Richie. So I really loved everything with Denzel Washington. He's really, really fun in this. And there's a lot of really good ideas. The direction is good. I really enjoyed a lot of the movie, but the actual ending of the movie and the way the conflict plays out is just kind of dumb in terms of a movie if you're not looking at it as specifically a biopic.
Yeah, that's why I like to steer clear of biopics a lot of the time, just because you get weak plot and just like poorly handled emotional stuff.
Yeah. But you do get Denzel Washington saying "my man" a lot throughout.
That's
while building a heroin empire.
It's worth it then to watch.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Very cool. I like it.
Then what did we do, Remy?
We went out to the theater yet again, we watched a little film called Evil Dead Rise.
Opening night, baby.
Opening night, and it was our first Evil Dead movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty happy. I gotta say,
right? It was so much fun. I really liked this.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big Evil Dead fan at this point. Like, it's growing on me a lot.
I love how
I still haven't seen.
You've only seen the remake.
I haven't seen the original trilogy. I've seen the remake and Ash versus Evil Dead, and now Evil Dead Rise. So I've watched like everything newer.
Yeah. We haven't even seen Army of Darkness, you know?
No, so I haven't watched the original trilogy, but I still really love the universe a lot.
It's awesome, dude.
Especially watching Ash versus Evil Dead, you get a lot of into the universe. In fact, I thought it was really funny because the big creature thing in this, they do that in Ash versus Evil Dead.
They did it better, Micah.
No, they did not do it better. Ash versus Evil Dead isn't like the greatest show of all time,
but it is pretty fun.
But this movie is really, really fun. It delivers on what you expect from an Evil Dead movie. It's very gross. It's over the top gory.
The finale's pretty fun.
The finale's fun.
Yeah.
I think the biggest complaint I have with this, and the biggest complaint I see most people having with this, is it's just kind of paper thin.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really have anything to do for a lot of its middle portion. It just ends up kind of repeating the same pattern over and over again, where it's like, ooh, something scary, and then like a little beat, and then ooh, something scary.
Yeah, again, it's
which
is typical Evil Dead.
Yeah,
typically that ties into some kind of character stuff going on, and there's really not much of that.
I mean, it's not bad, really.
No,
it just doesn't really hold me over.
It's
that
just
well.
paper thin.
Yeah.
You know, it is the all of the beats of an Evil Dead movie playing out, but just with not a whole lot of substance.
There's not a lot of meat. Yeah,
it's still fun.
It's cool.
And it's still really fun to watch in theaters,
cool movie,
especially. Man. It's a cool movie.
Yeah,
but it definitely does not feel even close to as just as stupid as it sounds, like rich as the 2013 Evil Dead does.
Yeah. 2013 Evil Dead rips, man. That movie's amazing.
So it's very interesting to me that, and kind of sad, because apparently they ended up reusing a couple plot points too that were going to be in the original draft of Evil Dead, and like it just feels a little sloppier than I would like.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do want to praise the cinematography though. It's very cool.
Cinematography is really, the performances are great.
A lot of the effects are really awesome, man.
The VFX are great.
Yeah.
I like the setting a lot. I think this is a really cool movie.
Again, very cool movie. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was pretty great.
I also gave it a 4 out of 5. Again, this is like,
it just could have been that much better.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that could have been like a masterpiece if it handled its characters as characters.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's true. On the 21st, I sat down and watched my first film from the Atlanta Film Festival.
Yahoo!
My first year attending, even though it is virtual.
You're not attending, Robbie.
I'm attending virtually, Mike. But yeah, I watched a film called Dusty and Stones. It's a documentary about 2 country music musicians from Swaziland in Africa.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. I don't know. It was a fun documentary. The 2 of them, Dusty and Stones, are really fun. Like, they're just fun people. Just the narrative of the doc, I think, is really where it fails. Just because it's not that interesting for like half of it. But it is cool. I would definitely recommend it if you're into like country music or just want to see a couple of guys dancing around. But it was fun. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice. Then on the 22nd, what did we do, Remy?
We sat down and we watched a David Lynch movie.
The best David Lynch movie.
Called Mulholland Drive.
The best David Lynch movie.
It's got Naomi Watts.
Naomi.
She's very good.
Laura Herring. Justin Theroux.
It's got a very good cast, I will say. Man, Mulholland Drive, great movie, I will say.
Mulholland Drive. I've talked about it before.
Yeah.
This was my first time rewatching it. And it's so good. I love this movie so much. It's like up there for one of my all-time favorite movies.
I really wanted to love it.
It's more. Very, very cool seeing it on a rewatch and being able to see all the little details. Yeah. I was just as engaged, which is something I was worried about on a rewatch. But I think it honestly might even be a little more engaging on a rewatch.
That's what I'm hoping, because this was my first time seeing it, and like, it's obviously very, very well made. Like, I mean, I think David Lynch is a very smart director. And the way it's written and performed and designed and structured is very, very smart. And it makes for a very effective movie. I just wasn't able to really get my footing on an emotional level, which the emotion is like such a vital part of Mulholland Drive. It's like the whole
very
thing.
Emotional movie.
Yeah, it's a mood piece essentially.
Yes.
And I just wasn't able to connect to it the way I wanted to. Boo. So I didn't end up giving it a 5. I really want to rewatch it, and hopefully it'll be like my favorite movie ever.
Boo.
But I just wasn't as into it as I wanted to be.
Stage.
But yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5. It's an amazing movie.
I gave it a 5 out of 5 because it's a perfect movie.
Wow.
Then on the 22nd, I watched 22 Bullets,
22 Bullets.
French action movie.
French action movie.
And it sure was a French action
How many
movie.
bullets were there?
There were more than 22.
Ah, dang it.
It was the most memorable part was a French cat eating a fish.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually.
The guy's like, he's frying up some fish, and this cat comes up and he's like, here, you want a fish? And then the cat eats the fish.
Wow. That's
the most interesting thing that happens. I don't really have anything else to say. I give it a 2.5. Also on the 22nd, I watched John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum.
The rewatch, Micah.
Yeah, I rewatched it with my mom because she had not seen 2 or 3. And while she watched 2, 22 Bullets, and 3 all in the same day because she was sick that day, which is probably why I'm sick now.
Parabellum made you sick, Micah.
But
because it's such a sick movie.
Parabellum is still easily the best of the John Wick movies, in my opinion. I love how gnarly it is. It's
so awesome.
It's a lot more. It's just even compared to 4, I think it's a lot more just violently gory and stuff. Like it's just fun in that aspect, and I really get behind like its pacing and its drive. It's just so good. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Very nice. On the 24th, I watched another documentary from the Atlanta Film Festival called Gabby Between Ages 8 and 13.
Is it Gabby Between Ages 8 and 13?
I was about to say, if you can guess, it's about someone named Gabby between the ages of 8 and 13.
Is Kayla doing the digital?
No, they watched this. A couple of people that I know online who host another movie podcast, Secondhand Film Critics.
They did that for that.
Yes. Well, I don't know how they watched it. They didn't say. But it was a good documentary. I enjoyed it. It was insightful, and it works pretty well on an emotional level, I will say.
Nice.
But yeah, go watch it. I'm sad that it all looks like ungraded footage, but it was a good documentary. It's, again, Gabby Between the Ages of 8 and 13. Good stuff.
Also on the 24th, we watched Alien³, the theatrical cut.
Alien³ theatrical cut. I gave it a 3 at that point.
I gave it a 3.
I also watched Jasmine is a Star on the 24th, which is the first narrative feature I watched from the festival.
But I'm a star.
I'm a star. It was neat. It's a very quaint movie. Not always in a good way, but sometimes in a good way, I'm trying to remember who the lead is. Iana Lachey is very, very good. I want to see her in another movie. But I don't know. It's got some good flourishes and some solid craft behind it, but it just doesn't really have enough plot to be feature length.
Yeah.
It should have just been 30, 40 minutes, something like that, instead of 60.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was a cool movie. I'm glad I watched it. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Nice.
Jasmine is a Star.
On the 25th, I watched The Shining.
The Shining.
Actually, it was late into the night on the 24th. I watched this at 1 a.m.
Into the night.
But The Shining, Stanley Kubrick. It was my first time seeing it. And it is...
Love that guy.
It is easily, in my opinion, my favorite that I've seen from him. I haven't seen a lot of his more popular movies still, I don't think.
Yeah, you haven't seen A Clockwork Orange and Eyes Wide Shut, which are his 2 other big movies,
The Shining is such a cool movie. That's really without deep diving into every element of it. It being cool is the best thing I can say about it. Its atmosphere is so tangible. The hotel is crazy.
Kubrick's such
I
a
love
good
the
director,
editing.
man.
I love the cinematography. I love the performances. It is a fantastic movie. It doesn't quite, and I think this is more just because that's how the plot had to go. My only like saddened thing, and it's not even really a real complaint, is just that I wish there was just like a little bit more to the finale, like more actual like stuff happening instead of just Jack Nicholson kind of hobbling along and being like, I'm gonna get ya, and then he doesn't.
There you go. Spoilers for The Shining, I guess.
It's The Shining, man. It came out like 40 something years ago.
I haven't seen it.
Anyway, I still think it's like, that's again not even like a real complaint to have about a movie. That's more like, darn, I wish it did this.
Yeah.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
There you go. And then on the 25th, we watched John Mulaney's new special, Baby J.
Yeah.
Very good.
Very, very good. It's actually one of my favorites of his.
Yeah. I really want to give it another like watch, because it's very, I don't know, it's not like super different. Like it's on a certain level it's the same, but also like it feels very different from his other specials.
Well, again, it's still his same style. It's just a lot more downbeat and a lot more story focused.
Yeah, it's a lot more like story time kind of thing, which his other ones are too, but it's just not as snappy as his other specials are,
which he does talk about.
Yeah, but it works
very well. I really like what Baby J is doing. I think it does a really good job of handling all of the stuff that he went through. Yeah.
I was about to say it's emotionally compelling without feeling too sappy for like a stand-up special, you know?
Yeah. So I think, I don't know. I thought, and as the storytelling stuff goes, I think it's one of the actual most narratively engaging of his specials.
It's one of the most coherent ones for sure.
Which is cool. I really liked it a lot.
I'm glad that he seems to be doing better.
Yeah. I hope he actually like continues to get better.
Right. Man, I love John Mulaney.
Again, it really is a shame that like, because of a very makes sense divorce, like after everything he had like been through and done, it makes sense that he and his wife got a divorce. That people like just completely essentially turned on him on the internet. Yeah. Which is stupid.
I don't know, man.
It's weird.
Like I said, I'm glad he seems to be doing better in this special.
So yeah.
Nothing but the best for him, I hope.
I gave it a 4.5.
I gave it a 4. I might bump it to a 5. It depends how the rewatch goes. I don't think
it's a 5.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice solid 4.5.
Yeah.
Then on the, what was that?
I watched something. I was about to say I watched a couple other things on the 25th.
Yeah, watching all these festival films.
I watched another festival film.
I have a job.
It's called Everybody Wants to Be Loved. It was actually one of my favorites I've seen from the festival so far. It's a German like dramedy kind of movie. I guess more of a drama than a dramedy. But it's very good. It looks great. It's got some great lead performances. Some great lighting, actually, which is rare to see. I mean, it is a German movie. I don't watch too many German movies from like this century, you know. But I should, because this one, it looks great. And I really liked the pacing and the editing and the way it incorporates music, and its score is really nice too. I don't know. Nice slice of life movie. Everybody Wants to Be Loved. If you find it somewhere, go watch it. I think it's good. I give it a 4 out of 5. And then I watched a documentary called Ship Happens later that day, which honestly I think is probably the worst documentary I've watched so far from the festival. It's just not that interesting. It's about this ship that like wrecks like right in the bay of this small like island in Georgia. I don't remember what it's called, but it's very close to where we are actually. But I don't know, it just kind of has like very insufferable leads, or just, see, the thing is they're either annoying or they're just very boring. A lot of the leads of the documentary, so it just doesn't work. I just wasn't that into it. A shocking amount of Trump supporters in Georgia. Who would have thought? Yeah. So I don't know.
Welcome
it was
to the South, baby.
It was cool on a conceptual level, but I just was never really that into what it was doing. So I gave it a 3 out of 5. I gave it a 2 initially. I bumped it up because I'm like, it's not actually like a bad documentary. It's just not as interesting as I want it to be. So I don't know. I'm very torn on how I feel about it. Not overwhelmingly positive though. But yeah, what did you watch, Micah?
On the 26th, I watched After Hours. Martin Scorsese's After Hours. I've been trying to work through pretty much all of Scorsese's films.
Yeah, I was about to say, you've seen more Kubrick and Scorsese than I have now. It's a crime.
I've seen a lot more Scorsese than you. You need to get on that.
Yeah.
But After Hours is probably one of my favorites from him now. I really love what it's doing. It's very unique within Scorsese's filmography. It's really funny and engaging. I love the atmosphere of everything. Like the Soho, it just feels so like such an interesting environment for this.
Cool.
And I love how it's essentially like a screwball comedy, but done through like a lot slower and more contemplative lens. So it's still like just as absurd, but you get a lot more time to like get into the inner workings of Paul. And it's really just a neat film thematically and very funny. And I really love it. And yeah,
it sounds awesome, dude.
It's so good.
I gotta watch it.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Very nice. On the 26th, I watched another film festival documentary called Eat Bitter. It's cool in concept, but just not as interesting as I want it to be in practice. That's pretty much it. I could envision a great 40-minute cut of it because there's a lot of great stuff there. It's just too long and just not enough happens. I gave it a 3 out of 5. But yeah, Eat Bitter.
Then on the 27th, I rewatched, again with my mom, Scooby-Doo Music of the Vampire. One of the weirdest entries in the Scooby-Doo cinematic canon, and I would know because I've seen all of them.
Back on the Scooby-Doo train now.
But it's just a weird one. It has no reason to be a musical, and then it forgets it's a musical halfway through.
Oh no.
Which is really funny.
The one thing.
Which is really, really funny. It's not even a thing though. Like it doesn't make sense to be a musical. There's no reason for this specific movie to be a musical.
That's a shame.
It's goofy and weird, and I don't really have too much to say about it. It is a perfectly like middling Scooby-Doo movie. It's fun, but it's not that great. I give it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah. On the 28th, I watched another documentary called No Time to Fail. It's about like the people who run the elections and administrate stuff, like local election stuff in Rhode Island, which is pretty cool. It was set during the 2020 election, which for those who were in America during 2020 know that was kind of a strange time politically, but it makes for a very interesting documentary. I like, again, a lot of the leads in this, like all of the people they choose to focus on in this one are a lot more interesting than some of the other documentaries I've watched. So I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It's cool from a procedural angle because you get to see a lot of like how the election stuff is actually like processed and handled and like how they actually count votes and everything. So it was cool. But also it works really well on like an emotional level too. So
nice.
Yeah. No Time to Fail. If you can track it down, go watch it. It's great. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Then on the 28th, I watched Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York.
Gangs of New York. There you go.
Very odd movie. This was one of the ones that I was most weary of going into, mainly for content reasons, because and it's got a little bit more stuff than I would recommend to somebody to go check out. But it's a very odd movie. It is easily Martin Scorsese's like weirdest movie I have seen. And it's just like, it's tonally weird. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Gangs of New York.
The characters are like, there's so much stuff going on in this movie. And it simultaneously feels way too long and way too short. And this is like a 2.5 hour movie.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, it might even be 3 hours. I don't know. No, it's a little under 3 hours.
Right.
So it's like 2:40 or something.
Yeah.
So it's a long movie. And the performances are fantastic. Daniel Day-Lewis is so good in this role. DiCaprio's really fun. It's like my favorite Cameron Diaz role. But like, it's just so weird. Like the plot feels so meandery. And the emotional core feels weird, and like everything about it is just kind of odd, but I still really enjoyed it. I give it a 4 out of 5.
Interesting. Shout out to our B movie watch on the 28th.
I didn't watch B-Movie.
Oh, you didn't watch it?
No.
Oh, right. It was just me and Mom.
I was
She was
watching
like,
Gangs of New York.
I was about to say, she was like, I've never seen B-Movie all the way through. I'm like, all right, we're going to watch B-Movie then.
I was watching Gangs of New York.
It was my sixth viewing for B-Movie. I gave it a 4.
Shout out to B-Movie.
Shout out to B-Movie for real.
Then on the 29th, I watched Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Wow, there you go.
Which is an wow, it's a 2020 movie?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Very odd movie. This was actually, I think, my first actual outing with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Because I haven't watched the original Suicide Squad because I didn't think it looked very good. And I hadn't watched The Suicide Squad because I wanted to watch this first. So this is my first actual, like, thing with her.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really good. She's really fun. I really love Margot Robbie's
she's
performance
a great
in this. Especially being that it's a lot more or a lot less yikes of a treatment of her character than the first Suicide Squad is. And I really, really love Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. I think he's a little underused. It's a shame that he doesn't do much for a lot of the movie. But the two of them are just really, really fun to watch go. And the plot, it's a little stupid and a little meandery. And I think it really would have been a lot better if it would have been told in like narrative order. You spend the first half of the movie doing these weird flashbacks and cuts to different things.
It's tough to do that well, man. It's really hard.
And I agree with kind of what Adam put into his review.
Adam Johnson.
Because he said that the screenplay and the direction were like directly against each other. The screenplay was going for like a very manic, crazy kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And the direction is trying to be very like, it's trying to be a bit more slow and down to earth with the characters. And they just kind of don't mesh.
Interesting.
Making the movie feel very odd. But I still had a lot of fun with it. I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
I'm really looking forward to it. The cast looks crazy, dude.
The cast is crazy.
I watched on the 29th a documentary called The Only Doctor. It's about a doctor working in rural Georgia.
It's about The Only Doctor? Are you saying that at the Atlanta Film Festival there were a lot of documentaries having to do with Georgia?
I know, it's just so surreal to see like where I live like in a movie, you know? It's crazy.
It's like watching a Baby Driver and being like, I know that street.
Exactly, dude. Baby Driver is so surreal watching it because I've basically the entire time I've been able to perceive my environment. I've been living in Georgia.
Right.
But yeah, The Only Doctor, I really like a lot of the narrative framing and like cinematic framing of it. It just doesn't really... I don't know. It doesn't really work for me on like it's just not that interesting, you know? Like it's a really well-made documentary about something that I don't like. I obviously care about like healthcare and stuff like that, which is really the whole point of it.
It's like, I don't care about healthcare and you can quote me on that.
No, see, the whole premise of The Only Doctor is that like the people in this is like the poorest like town in all of Georgia. Like they don't have any healthcare whatsoever. So this, like the main focus of the documentary is about this lady who goes and opens a clinic for like, you can go and get like medical care for like $35.
Nice.
Which is cool. And I care about that. They just don't make me care beyond my like baseline. Oh, I care about healthcare in America.
I was about to say, the cinematic use of the documentary and writing does not make you care.
Exactly.
It's just the fact that
that I already care about this.
Yeah, that's
and
a
it's
cool
real
story.
Life. Yeah. So I don't know, it just doesn't fully work for me. But I do admire it for what it is. And I mean, you know, it mattered. I'm glad it got made at least, you know, because they started like building a clinic and everything during the course of it. So it's interesting. I gave it a 3 out of 5, but if you care about like healthcare in America, which I hope you do, I would definitely recommend you watch it. It's called The Only Doctor.
We've gotten some interesting things from Robbie this episode. We've gotten that he does not want women on the podcast and he doesn't care about healthcare.
No. Also on the 29th, I sat down and watched a film called Wilder Than Her, which is one of the narrative features I watched from the Atlanta Film Festival. It's like a thriller horror movie thing, and it was really fun. The character writing was really good. As a writer-director debut, it's shockingly good, I think. It's got some really fun cinematography. Like the lens choices are pretty much always immaculate, which is a big win in my book. I just wish it had a bit more ebb and flow during its second act. It's really kind of boring a lot of the time during its second act, but like the character stuff is solid enough that it carries through, and I think it still ends up being an enjoyable, pretty great movie.
Harvey's like, major snooze fest.
No, it's not a snooze fest, I swear. Wilder Than Her. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's one of my favorite films I've seen during the festival. It's right up there with Everybody Wants to Be Loved, I think, for like kind of tied as my favorite. It's good stuff. And then on the 30th, Micah, we sat down and we watched something called The Lodge. It's a little movie.
We sure did.
It's a movie called The Lodge.
The Lodge.
It's about a lodge. It's about the lodge.
I didn't really, and we are divided on this. We spent
a podcast divided.
We spent a long time talking about this after we watched the movie, because I think it's a very cool concept with some cool direction and some cool performances. Yeah. But I think the script is it very much drops the ball, and I think thematically it's kind of a mess.
I don't know.
The script is laughably, like the actual plot is kind of laughably dumb. I hate the plot.
The actual plot is dumb, and I can't really argue against that, which is why it's not a 5 for me. But the atmosphere is so good, and the performances are great. And I don't know, the thematic like through lines that it works with, I just found very compelling, apparently. I don't know. The plot was not that big of a detractor for me. I ended up not really caring about like what happened on a plot level by the end of the movie.
I was bored, and it was kind of bad.
That makes me so sad, Micah. You make me sad. But yeah, I thought it was cool. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed The Lodge, Micah, if you can even believe it.
I give it a 3 out of 5. It's just kind of a thematic mess, and it's not very interesting, and it's also stupid.
Did you watch anything else after that?
I did. On the, I guess it was, on the 30th. I finished, because I watched it split into 2 parts. And it was not a good way to watch it. But I watched Titanic. It was my first time watching it since we saw it in theaters. Which was very cool. Splitting it into 2 halves is not a good idea, but it's still a fantastic movie.
Oh man,
I really love it. It may be a little stupid, but I love it. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Then on the second, we watched Alien³ again.
Alien³, the 2003 cut.
And that's everything.
That's all the movies, if you can even believe it. But yeah, thanks for listening to the whole podcast. If you're still around, I appreciate it. Remember to go follow us on Spotify if you have a Spotify account. It'll help us get monetized sooner rather than later. So
yeah.
Go
follow us on Spotify.
Go check out our Letterboxd HQ page.
Letterboxd HQ.
Just go on letterboxd.com and search for Recently Logged, and we'll pop up.
Indeed, we will.
Look for the little HQ purple tag.
Leave us suggestions. Yeah. Any women out there in our viewer base, feel free to ask if you want to.
The out of context clip.
Feel free. Don't feel oppressed by Robbie.
Yes.
Feel free to come on the podcast. We'd very much appreciate any guest.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you guys in the next one.